Alright guys, welcome back to Half Rod's YouTube channel. So my dad's service is going to be this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. and this is Tuesday. So there's a couple things I need to do to the truck. So I need to hand wash it and wax it and do some tire foam and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to wait until probably Friday, if not early Saturday morning. Probably do it Friday. To do the detail stuff on it, make it shiny and look good. But there's two other things that need to be done, and I'm going to go ahead and do those today. So I had to call my local O'Reilly's parts store because I have an account there, and I had to order some parts in. They had a couple of things in stock, and then they had some stuff that wasn't in stock. So what I'm going to do is do a full service on the rear axle today. So this is something that the truck probably really needs. So I'm going to do that. This is an 8.5 10 bolt. This is a non-posi truck. It's just a single track peg legger. But when I was putting gas in the truck, I noticed the whole housing of the rear end is wet, but the front is dry. So that is a textbook right there for a pinion seal leaking. So I got to pull the drive shaft out of the truck and then get my big socket on that nut on that. I'm going to pull that yoke off of there, replace that pinion seal and put it back together there. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is pull the rear end cover, guys. Pull the rear end cover off. It's 10 bolts. And it's pretty wet. But I'm going to go ahead and pull the 10 bolt cover off. I'm going to pull the pin out of the center section and take the C-clips out, and I'm going to pull all the axles out, both axles out, and I'm going to go ahead and replace the axle seals on the ends of the axle, or the housing over here. So anyway, and then I'll put all brand new fluid in it, and it'll be pretty much serviced at that point. But doing this will allow me to get the I can get a good look at the brake drums and, you know, the wheel cylinders and see if they're seeping or anything. Nothing's wet on the back side of the wheel, so this stuff's probably okay, but I don't know that it's ever been serviced like that with new seals and stuff. I mean, I assume maybe it has, but I don't know for sure. He never told me that he had that done. And it's one of those things that's often overlooked on vehicles. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do that, put all new axle seals, pinion seal, and a new rear end cover gasket on it. So it's kind of funny when you call and talk to somebody at a parts store and you tell them you want a rear end cover gasket or a differential cover gasket. They're like, you know, you could just silicone that, right? No. No, I won't be doing that. That is half-assery, and I ain't doing that. So I'm going to do it just like the factory done it, and it's going to have a seal on it. So all right guys, so I got the rear end jacked up on jack stands, and I went ahead and pulled the wheels off, and I pulled the drums off on both sides, and we've got a little bit more issues going on here, which is kind of normal, you know what I mean? So at this point now I need to change out the wheel cylinders. So this one is barely seeping. I've already run my finger across here, but this one's barely seeping, like that's just barely wet there. So this one's on its way out. The drum, when I took the drums off on both sides, there's a lot of slack in there. You can free spin the wheel and it'll just keep going and going and going. This is not a posi truck, so anyway, you could spin that wheel and it just kept going. So these need to be adjusted out a little bit more, and this may be why I don't have a lot of brake pedal. I've got, this thing goes down probably another inch or so further than my square body, and I figured maybe the lines just need bled or something, but anyway, this is probably part of it. I mean, it is very sloppy loose, so I need to adjust the shoes on both sides. They both did it, so I'm going to do that. Anyway, it doesn't look like the axle seal is leaking on this side. It doesn't look like it's leaking on the other side over there, but this wheel cylinder on the other side is way worse. I guess I'll go ahead and show you. It's kind of tight to get through here. So this one's been leaking. You can tell it's leaking brake fluid because the paint is lifted off of the shoe, because brake fluid you know, ruins paint. I'm telling you guys, I say it all the time in a lot of my videos, if you're gonna redo your brakes on your old vehicle, your old classic car, and you're changing like these get changed out, which means all the fluid in the line can be blown out to put fresh in, or even if you're building a car from ground up like an old 55 or anything, put .5 brake fluid in it. The .3 brake fluid draws 2% moisture every year, so that's why stuff rusts out inside. You go to the .5 and it doesn't do that. It is a little bit more money for the .5 brake fluid. However, it goes up on what it can take temperature wise. So it takes a lot more heat before it boils than what .3 does. So if you're running a, you know, especially like a race car and you've got brake lines close to your headers and stuff, that .5 is just, it's hands down the best way to go. But I'll tell you the coolest part about .5, it won't do this. You can pour it on your paint and it won't hurt the paint. That's the biggest thing for me, because, you know, when I restore a car, I usually paint my chassis, and, you know, it's car paint and then the car's painted. So if you get a brake fluid leak and it starts flying up on the back of the car, it's going to take the paint off. So go to .5. Do not mix those two together. Don't just drain out your master cylinder with a turkey baster and then just put in .5 with the .3 in the lines. You cannot mix those two together. I don't know what it does, but they just say do not mix those two. But anyway, this drum, it's also shiny where it is making contact, but the same thing, the shoes are real sloppy on there. But that wheel cylinder is definitely going to have to be changed out. So might as well do that while I'm at it. I hope they have them in stock. And now I'll show you the worst part about this whole deal. Get around here. This is why I put brand new tires every time I build a car. There's a crack, a dry crack, all the way around that tire, all the way around. So that's no bueno, man. Now I did find the date on the tire, so that's pretty cool. And these are not as old as I thought they were, but they are out of their time span. So on your DOT there with your 3 windows, on this one in particular, that is 4th month, 5th day of 2017. So tires, I think it's like 5 years or something on a set of tires, which you're supposed to have max or something. And I mean, I'm guilty of it. I drive them past that too, but it's usually on vehicles that I drive all the time. It's not something that sets a lot. I think a tire breaks down a lot more when it's not driven, you know, so anyway. Just got back from O'Reilly's. I got a Felpro rear end cover gasket, and I got a pinion seal and 2 axle seals, and I went with Precision. I also bought a can of brake parts cleaner, which is a lot more money at O'Reilly's than it is Walmart. Even with my discount at O'Reilly's, it's still pretty high. So right now with all this, I'm at $30 in. I have 2 bottles of rear end oil in my cabinet in there, so I'm going to use that. But the wheel cylinders, I ran into a problem. They offer 3 different ones, and I don't know which one it is. So they had, let's see, 15/16, 1 inch, and 1 1/8. But I don't know which one this is, so I'll need to get the wheel cylinder off, pop the boot off, and caliper that, which I'm obviously probably just going to take one with me. So one of them specified a different width shoe. So there is 2 different shoe widths on these rears of these square bodies. I do remember that, but this ended up being the skinnier one. But anyway, I've got some crap to figure out here, but I'm going to go ahead and start busting this apart. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the drive shaft out and then get the rear end cover off, get the oil drained out into a bucket, and get all that taken apart and get the axles out of there. And then I'm going to try to clean out the axle the best I can with some rags and stuff, and that way it'll have all nice fresh new fluid. I'm kind of curious as to how much fluid's left even in it. Okay. I still feel okay, I guess. I'm just sitting here thinking, I think I loaned out my socket. I hope I got it back. All right. Well, let's break a seal and see how dirty this stuff is. Well, the good news is it has oil in it. Gotta love that smell of that old gear oil. Whew, stinks, man. And thank goodness nobody's ever put silicone all over this. I hate that when people do that, man. Makes it messy. Well, let's get our hands dirty here. I don't feel any clumps or chunks or anything, so that's a good thing. It's kind of bubbly up there on some of that stuff. It's really good that the truck's been sitting here for about a week because it gave it time to get a lot of it drained off everything up high and get down low. I got a rag, but I don't remember what I did with it. That was brilliant. So I'm going to be pulling this bolt out right here. It's usually like an 8mm or a 5/16. And anyway, I'll pull that bolt out. If it still has the pin connected to the end of it, I'll be good to go. But if that pin's broke off, this is going to turn into a big job. But anyway, if that bolt comes out with its pin on the end of it like it should, because it should be about yay long, I'll pull that bolt out, and then I'll stick my finger back up in there, and this round pin right here will come out, and I'll pull it off, and then you can grab the axle and actually push in just a little bit, and I can pull the C-clips out from right in here in this window, and the axles will just slide right out at that point. So pretty simple stuff. And now would be the time for me to find my gear ratio. Let me go find my grease rag I had out. Alright guys, so a long time ago I bought a specific wrench off the Snap-on truck for this. I've had this wrench for a long time. So this is a 5/16, and I always use a box end on the end of that bolt for these rear ends on these GM10 bolts. I use the box end, and most box end wrenches are 12 point, and I wanted one that's hex head. So anyway, I've got a hex head, and it's actually pretty long. So this is pretty much the reason I bought this one wrench, and I don't remember what I paid for it, but it was a lot because it's Snap-on. All right. Please have a pin on the end of you, bolt. Please. We are in business, people. See that bolt? See how it's got threads stopped there. Threads come out to about right there where my thumb is. The rest of that is a pin. So now, wipe my hands again. So now what I'll do is pull this pin out. I'll stick my finger in here. There's a pin that'll come out of here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to reposition the camera. Get you a better angle on this. Put it back here toward the back. So I get all the oil off my finger so I can hit the power or the stop button. Okay. So I put my finger up in behind there and I started that pin, and it'll come out like this. So when you get these out, there's what that pin goes into on that bolt. That's what holds that in place, and a lot of times these break off, and it is a nightmare to get those out of there. I remember changing the rear end in a G-body, a factory Positrack G-body rear end. I remember changing the rear end because I messed with it for like 3 hours trying to get the pin out. And I finally just had another rear end and I just changed it out because it was a pain. But anyway, once you pull that locator pin out, you don't really want to turn your axles because it'll roll your spider gears out, which you can roll them right back in there. But at this point, you take... I'll put my hand under here and I'll push in on that axle, and the C-clip falls out in my hand. So that axle's ready to come out, and I'm going to keep this on this side so I know that's the one out of that. And I can't reach the other one. Dang it. This is when I need somebody videoing for me. Son of a gun. And that one fell out. You push in just a little bit on that axle and the C-clips will fall out. Now you know the reason, if you've never been into one of these and seen that, now you know the reason for C-clip eliminators in a drag racing application. That is all it's holding your axle in. That little bitty thing right there. Kind of crazy, huh? That one goes on the right. So now, we can go ahead and pull the axles. All right, so I have this floor jack. I have the rear axle on jack stands, but it's just as a safety precaution. I've got the floor jack under this side here on the backing plate. It'd be enough to hold it for me to get out from under it, you know, in theory anyway. When you're working all over that rear end center section, it's kind of hard to do it somewhere. But now the C-clips are out. It comes out just like that. I did that a little fast. I should have slowed my roll a little bit. Go ahead and wipe this off a bit. And it is sludgy. Like, I mean, I don't know if that's original or not, but it sure hasn't been changed in a while. So, you got your axle seal right here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is pull. I'm going to wash my hands. That's what I'm going to do. Alright, so I went ahead and I took the jack out because I'm not under it right now, and I took the rear end cover and laid it just underneath this to basically catch any oil that comes out at this point. But I'm going to use my expensive axle seal remover tool and show you how to remove this axle seal. Pretty expensive axle seal removing tool, huh? Oh boy. I know a lot of you guys do that, but there's some people that probably might not have seen that before. So right now I'm going to put my glasses on. I'm just going to look this bearing over real good. The bearing face on the axle looks really nice. I don't see any pock marks or anything in this bearing, because if you have to put a bearing in, now's the time to do it. So that bearing looks good, and then I look at this right here, this surface right here. I have seen these with a deep groove wore in them from the seal. Oh yeah, this one's pretty nice, man. So I'll end up cleaning this up, and then I'm going to run some emery sandpaper basically around this and get this real nice and smooth for that new seal to seat into. Another little detail thing you need to do when you're doing this. That rear end is sludgy, man. It is it's sludged up pretty bad. Could be worse though, I guess. So I can hear the people now. Why aren't you using rubber gloves? Well, that's the reason right there. It's empty. Barely had the money for seals, let alone another $25 box of gloves. So my seal matches up. I took it out of the box, matched it up with that, and I have the correct axle seals. So I could go ahead and install those right now. Alright, so I got the seal put in there. I used a seal driver from my seal driver kit, knocked it down in there. So now what I'm going to do is get a little bit of oil here and Put it on that seal right there. Let's see how this goes. Checking that, the face of this where that seal rides, and I don't really feel a groove. It looks like there's one in it. It's just the old mark from the seal on there. So this will need to be cleaned and also emeryed off smooth so the new seal doesn't have anything on it. Now I will have to use a seal puller for this, and I do have one, but anyway. Some people will say you need to change the crush sleeve when you take that loose. The impact gun I have doesn't have enough force to crush a crush sleeve. It barely has enough to do that nut there. So, and I've changed pinion seals a bunch, especially in G-bodies too, but I've never had an issue with the rear axle having problems after changing them out and just putting a new seal in and bolting it all back together with the original crush sleeve. So if you do, that's fine. I'm not doing it. Well, I got it out, but I made a mess. I got it on the GoPro tripod a little bit. Thank goodness it didn't get on the camera. Well, my GoPro decided to just shut off while I was filming. So I have the beeps set up on the GoPro so it beeps in case it shuts off or something like that. But this one just froze up. It's pretty hot though, so I think it just overheated because these GoPros are junk. Anyway, I put the pinion seal in. I don't know how much of that got recorded. I'm not going to know until I get in there and import the videos to the computer. But anyway, I got the pinion back on. Anyway, I used some assembly grease on the. I sanded the end of the thing that rides inside the seal, the pinion piece, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I sanded that smooth with some 600 grit paper, got it all cleaned up real good, and then wiped everything down, and then I put on some assembly grease on that shaft and then also on the new seal, and then put that back together. And anyway, I checked my depth on the, before I took it off, I checked it with this, and it's the same, so I put it back on exactly where it was. You know, if you keep going at that pinion, that nut on there, you'll crush that sleeve some more and it'll change the setting on the rear. So it pretty much, my little cheapy impact from Walmart, it put it on there and then you could hear it kind of bog down. So at that point I checked it and it needed just a little bit more, and I kind of smacked it again and then it went on. So it was just barely turning it. But anyway, I got the axle cleaned up. I used some brake clean, cleaned all the old axle oil off of it, and I did do the sandpaper on the part where the bearing rides, but it does have a little bit of a groove started, and this is just common with high mileage, you know, axles, but I've seen them worse than this. But anyway, I got it sanded. I think it'll be just fine. But anyway, I'm getting ready to put it back in the rear end, and I still need to take the other axle, get it out, get it cleaned up, and do the same thing, sand this down. But I mean, it's almost well, I shouldn't say it's almost. I mean, it's getting there, you know what I mean? I got 2 seals in so far. I got 1 more seal to put in, and then slide the axles in, put the C-clips back in, and if only I'd have done that as fast as I said that. Alright, so I got the axles cleaned up real nice. I sanded the bottom of it down here where the bearing's going to ride, then I wiped it all down. Then I took some new rear end oil and pretty much put it all over the whole thing and down here, and then I've got a little bit that I put in that seal, so axle's ready to go back in. So I'll try to be careful and get the seal. I don't want to just grind that axle all down that seal. I want to try to hold it out in the middle as much as I can. Shove it in there pretty good. I'll put the other one in, and then I'll put the C-clips in. I need to put oil on it, and yada yada yada. So this axle's for the other side. You can see where I surfaced that a little bit, and I mean, as usual with the high mileage, you got a little, I've seen them a lot worse, but you get a little bit of a groove in there, and anyway, that's as good as it gets. But I need to coat this with oil, and then I'm gonna slide it in. All right, so I gotta slide this axle through. Pushing. I already pushed the other one in, so I'll take the C-clip, clean it up a little bit, put him back in there. So you put the C-clip up there, and then you push in, push the axle out that way, and it holds the C-clip in there. There's that one. So now I'll take the pin. I've got the hole lined up in the pin for the bolt. There it is right there. Now you know why people use 9-inch Fords for high performance applications. You imagine going really, really fast on C-clips? I guess they'll hold up to a certain point, but there, that's about torqued right. Alright, so now all that's left is cleaning the face side off and cleaning the gasket off of this cover, and it can be reinstalled and then the fluid put in. It's funny, I used to have some neighbors, they don't live here anymore, but they had a teenage boy, I think he'd just turned 16, and anyway, the dad had a new model Chevy pickup. This was probably, I don't know, 13 years ago probably. Anyway, he let the son take his truck out at night and go wherever, do whatever. Well, anyway, the mom come over to my house, walked over here, and she said, "Can you come look at this truck? There's something wrong with it. It won't go anywhere." And I walked over there and I had them start it up and put it in gear, and you could hear stuff just going crazy in that rear end, and the truck was kind of jerking a little bit when you give it gas. So anyway, I said, it sounds like something in the rear end's broken. And I noticed there was rubber on the back of the bedside, and I looked at the tire, and he'd been spinning the crap out of the tires. Anyway, I told him I needed a drain pan and a impact with a 13mm, and I got back under there and took that rear end cover off, and as soon as I pulled that cover off, you could hear chunks hitting the bottom of the pan, clunk, 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 and the gears were just fried. And I climbed off under there and I said, "You're gonna have to put rear end gears in that or find another rear end at a salvage." I said, "That one's fried." And she goes, "Well, what would have caused that?" And I said, "Your teenage boy spinning the tires." And he goes, "I didn't spin the tires." And I said, "Somebody did. There's rubber all over the back of the bed back here." The wheel well and stuff. I don't care if he got in trouble or not. He don't need to be doing that kind of crap, you know what I mean? Not that I did it, but I had my own car. I didn't do that stuff in my dad's vehicles that I remember. All right, so now I'm going to use my carport leg here for knock those back in. Okay, so I cleaned the cover up pretty good just with brake clean and a rag. I've got the face side cleaned to metal, and I'm going to install it dry with a gasket, because I don't silicone my rear end covers. That's not the way they were from the factory on this model of truck. All right, now I got to do the cleanup. Yay! One of these days, maybe I'll have a lift, but I doubt it. All right, I got the wheel cylinder off without stripping a bunch of, like stripping out the nut, the flare nut. Outside don't look too bad. Whoa! Pretty rough, man. .3 brake fluid right there. Absolute garbage. They look really small. .993. Well, narrows it down to the one I need, doesn't it? I'm still going to take it with me. That way I don't get the wrong part. I am going to put it in a Ziploc bag though, because I don't want any brake fluid getting on my truck. Funny, I still refer to this truck as my dad's truck, and my square body my truck, and they're both my trucks, but I don't know, I just can't. I'm not there yet. I don't know if I'll ever be able to call this my truck, you know what I mean? It'll always be my dad's truck. Alright. Well, that's kind of awesome. At least we found a few problems, so I'll be able to figure it out. Yeah, this thing it's froze up, man. I may soak these in some muriatic acid, I don't know yet. I'll just mess with it, see if I get it broke apart. If I can get it apart, I can clean all the parts separately on the wire wheel. I don't have to mess with that muriatic acid, but it sure make those look nice, and then I could spray paint them so they don't rust again. So, off to O'Reilly's. Alright, it is Thursday, and yesterday I ended up going to O'Reilly's and getting the wheel cylinders for the truck. I got them all put on. I found a few problems on this side over here. That side over there, the wheel cylinder was leaking worse. This one was just now starting, and the brake shoe on the driver's side of the truck was on backwards. The shoes were on backwards, so the other side was correct. But anyway, I got it all changed out. I got the adjusters taken apart. I soaked them in muriatic acid, and then I rinsed them off. Then I cleaned them with brake clean. Then I blew them off with an air blower, and then I spray painted them so they won't rust again. And then I re-greased them and put them back together, and they're working fantastic now. So anyway, there was a lot of slack in the drum to the brake shoes on the trucks, which is probably why the brake pedal goes down a little bit further. It needs new shoes. The other side I ended up cleaning. Basically all the paint came right off of that shoe on the passenger side because the wheel cylinder had been leaking and soaked everything. I did end up cleaning the pad material off real good, and I sanded it and got it back clean and dry. But it's going to need new shoes. I just didn't have the money. I'm tapped out from buying all the seals and the wheel cylinder. So anyway, it should be okay right now. So I still need to weld the muffler. I'm going to try to do that this afternoon, but this morning I have to take my mom to Tulsa, so hopefully we'll get back early enough that I can move the truck and get my welder out here and weld up the muffler. I think I'm almost out of welding gas, but hopefully there's enough in there to do what I need to do. I hope. Anyway, I'll show you right here. This is one of the wheel cylinders off the truck. That thing was leaking, man. Bad shape. So again, if you're building an old car, and you're doing all new stuff, use .5, not .3, and you won't have this problem. Brake stuff will last a lot longer. So anyway, I didn't film anything yesterday. I started out filming, the battery died, and then I'd left my other battery out here in the garage and it was dead. I never took it in and charged it, so I just said hell with it. But anyway, thanks for watching.